Through the end of 2018 and the beginning of this year, I have been working on writing a story titled Between Which Worlds. As I work on editing and refining the umpteenth draft, I've begun thinking about the designs of all the characters and locations that appear in this story. In this video, I will walk through the process I used to design all the characters and create this lineup. The first step of any design project should always be research. This is the stage where you familiarize yourself with the subject and really narrow down the traits you want to exaggerate or disguise. Research is a skill, and there are many ways to go about it. One might say an artist should always be researching by constantly observing the world around them and building their visual library. It can be very helpful to keep a folder somewhere full of images with qualities you find appealing or interesting. Doing so might provide images you wouldn't have found when you were researching or never have thought relevant until you start researching for a project. I like to supplement these images with images I find by searching relevant topics on Google Images. I like to take these photos and compile them in a document sorted by categories. I find it easier to tackle a cast of characters when I work with them in groups, so I sort the reference images according to these groups. For instance, there are a number of elementary school-aged kids in Between Which Worlds, so I find reference images that relate to that group. I do try to keep in mind the separate personalities of each character, however, so not every image relates to every character in each group. This is the document of references I compiled for all the characters in this story. The next step is to actually study these references. I like to do it by sketching quick silhouettes. This helps me actually assess the aspects of each subject I'd like to push, and it is also a great warm-up for making design decisions. Now, even before I started writing the story, I had some ideas about what some of the characters would look like, so I like to throw down the silhouettes of these ideas as well. However, the first idea is rarely the best, so I usually try to play with the silhouettes by applying what I learned in the research step and playing around with proportion. Once I have a page full of silhouettes, it's time to start narrowing down my options. I do this by filling the silhouettes I think work best with a different color, then move them onto a different layer. On this layer, I sketch out variations of the designs the silhouette suggests. Ultimately, I pick one design for each character. I copy this design for each character into a document where all the designs for the characters will be compiled. This is when I start thinking about color. I like to do this when I can see all the characters because it helps me see the relationships between all the colors and make sure that everybody will look good together. Nothing should clash, on accident at least. Now, with all the designs decided on, it's time to move on to the final art. I decided to draw a character lineup that I could reference while working on the storyboards and animation. In most animation productions, a turnaround sheet would be drawn for each character as well, but since I am working on this project alone for the time being, I decided to only draw a lineup for now and make turnaround sheets for each character as I need them. Character lineups are great because it's a great opportunity to capture the dynamic between characters and suggest the stories of their relationships. Because of that, character lineups are one of my favorite things to draw. I started drawing the character lineup for Between Which Worlds by putting the colored silhouettes in order and adjusting the scale of each one. I copied the scaled silhouettes of the humanoid characters into a new document because those were the characters that I wanted to focus on for the time being. On a layer above the silhouettes, I made rough sketches, being careful to choose poses that showed the relationships between each character and summed up the story. To refine these sketches, I used a technique called tie-downs that I've learned animators use to create really precise line art. Basically, instead of doing line art in one straight shot, I sketched where I wanted the lines to be. I wish I had thought of this trick before. It's really effective. On top of the tie-downs, I went ahead and did the final line art. I really like how the line art turned out, but I don't think it will be sustainable to use polished line art in the final animations. It takes far too long, and I don't have the time or energy to handle a task of that scale on my own. What I will probably do is add color behind the tie-downs for most of the animation, and do polished line art for really important scenes or something. After I finished the line art, I filled in the colors by referencing the colored silhouettes and added a mid-tone background. Lastly, I tried to add a glow to the fairy characters, but I decided I didn't like how it looked. Thank you for watching. I hope you find the process of designing a cast of characters interesting. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing for more like it. I plan to have a video about designing all the environments for this story out soon. See you in the next video.